Good morning, everybody. It is 11:03, and we are going to get started with our program volunteer Mission Pep Rally. So first off, I wanted to thank you all for joining today. We're very excited to have all of you here. And I did want to pass this over, and I would like to introduce Jennifer Leopard, who is our CEO here for the Alzheimer's Association Michigan chapter. Jennifer, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're happy to have you. Happy July, happy summer. This is certainly unprecedented time for all of us, and I guess the good opportunity is that it's kind of pushing us to get together in this way more often. So we're happy to have you join us today. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to thank you all for everything that you've done to help us through this time. You know, we went home back in mid-March. It's 4 months ago. It seems a lot longer, but it's only 4 months ago. And, you know, one of the first things we had to figure out is how are we going to make sure that we can provide care and support to our constituents in this time. So I really, have to give kudos to you, some of our volunteers that pivoted right away with us. Our helpline moved to virtual within 3 days. Our program staff in Michigan immediately got education programs up and running, our support groups up and running. We're still doing early stage programming virtually. So we've really been able to offer everything during this time. It's certainly not perfect. There are many of you I know who are dying to get back to in-person. I myself am one of those people who would love to go back to the office. But the thing that's important is that we're doing all this in a way that is safe for our constituents and safe for you, our volunteers, and safe for our staff. I do want to share just a couple great stats that since mid-March, we have done across the country 5,393 support groups and education programs, and more than 30,000 constituents have been able to participate. So some of the lessons that we've taken away from this are certainly things that we can take into the future as well, even when we are back in person. And we do intend to get back in the community in person as soon as we are able to do so safely. But we're also hoping that we're going to be able to use some of our lessons that we've learned through this whole process. Some of our rural and minority communities have been able to participate in a more in-depth way because of doing things virtually. I know the one example that we like to talk about at the Alzheimer's Association a lot is that the Northern California chapter had done a program, an education program in Chinese, and people all across the country participated in that. And that's something that might not be available in person in every community where there are Chinese speakers, but because we did it virtually, it was something that they could take part in. So those are some lessons that we want to take into the future, even more back in the community. And the other lesson that we've kind of learned through all this is that one of the great advantages is that we're able to provide more services to caregivers in their homes. One of the challenges for caregivers to get out to support groups or education programs is certainly who is going to be caring for their loved one during that time. And the fact that we're able to come into their home gives them so much more flexibility in terms of when they participate in things, if that is what they want to do. We certainly understand that some caregivers look very much forward to the time that they can leave the house and go out and meet with some peers. So we want to be able to do both things moving forward. But, none of this is possible without the volunteers and the work that all of you do. We've certainly had some challenges. I mean, I was worried I was going to be late for this meeting. I was having trouble getting online, and we've certainly had challenges through this whole problem, but we've definitely learned some good lessons, and we are looking forward to a very productive coming year, and certainly even, like I said, the ability to do even more services in more ways when we're able to get fully back in person. So I wanted to give you, express our deep appreciation from the whole staff team at the Michigan chapter for everything that you do as a program volunteer, and I look forward to being here with you for the rest of the program. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. And we are going to move on.
I walk because of my family. My grandmother had Alzheimer's. My father has Alzheimer's. And I don't want my kids to continue with that struggle. I walk so that we can find a cure. I advocate for my Chupe, my grandma, who was my best friend. My mom and I took care of her for 15 years in her home. We take our fight all the way from Lansing to Washington, D.C., and we make our voices heard. Our stories are very powerful. We fight for a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementias.
Before I turn it over to Claudia, I wanted to say, this is Sarah Lewan. I am the volunteer program manager for Alzheimer's Association for the state of Michigan. And just to piggyback on what Jennifer said, we cannot thank you enough. Our volunteers who are out there moving our mission forward, changing lives, making sure people have the needed resources for them to continue on and at least try to have a smile on their face, or at least grin through it for the day. So thank you all so much, all of you who are attending. Your service is so appreciated, and we cannot do this without you. And we're only going to begin to reach more people as we move forward. So thank you again. I am going to turn this over to Claudia, and Claudia is going to tell us a little bit about our response to COVID-19 during this time.
Okay, so I hope everyone can hear me okay. I can't believe that I have to talk to you about coronavirus after watching that amazing video, but I promise that everything that I have are all good things. So we're going to talk about how the Alzheimer's Association and our chapter as well has responded to coronavirus. So the Alzheimer's Association as a national organization was really out front early during the outbreak of COVID-19. So we're talking way back in February, way back in March, which seems like so long ago now, advocating on behalf of people living in long-term care communities and their families who were and still are deeply affected by COVID-19. So if you think about how COVID-19 has affected these families, maybe a family member can no longer visit face-to-face with their loved one, or maybe a family member is providing more care at home now and needs information on structuring a routine and building in activities that their loved one with dementia might enjoy. So on the ALZ website, if you've ever heard us talk about this, there's a special section that was created, and it's alz.org/COVID-19. That's COVID, the number 1 and the number 9. And this section houses our caregiver tips, our tips for supporting a loved one in residential care, and even how to stay healthy as a caregiver. So in Michigan, we've been promoting this resource across all of our programs statewide. So you might have heard us talk about it during an education program, or maybe you've attended the COVID-19 and caregiving program, where we really delve deep into these tips and other resources that we have that existed before COVID as well, and how they can help particularly during this time. So back in March, our chapter put together a virtual and in-home activities list that was published on our alz.org/GMC website as well. And like Jennifer mentioned, the Michigan chapter staff and our volunteer facilitators, educators, and leaders, and so many other roles had our programs up and running through Blue Jeans and other online platforms quickly. So we're really rocking the response to COVID. And as we know, there's still a lot more work to be done. But I do also want to mention here that what is really great about our COVID tips is that they were shared, on a number of national webinars with community partners like International AME Church Health Commission, the National Hispanic Council on Aging, and even the Medical Alert Foundation, which is really cool. In addition to that, the Alzheimer's Association was also recently on an AARP teletown hall, say that 5 times fast, that focused on COVID-19. And these are all nationally led webinars. So we're reaching thousands more than we would have before, or we might be reaching people that would have not connected with us otherwise. And not only that, but we are elevating the conversation around COVID to include people who are living with dementia and their caregivers. All right, and I know I have the next slide. Okay, looks like we're there. So the Alzheimer's Association certainly took a really strong stance on public awareness and advocacy with a campaign aimed at improving state and federal responses to COVID-19 in long-term care communities. This was back pretty recently as well. I know there's a lot more work going on around it, but it's been around for some time. We formed a series of policy recommendations that our advocacy teams took to state houses and members of Congress. And these recommendations are 4-pronged. So there's testing is the first one, reporting, what we call surge activation is the 3rd prong, and the last one is providing support. So first with testing, I'm just going to really briefly touch on these to let you know what our recommendations are. So first with testing is an assurance that care communities are prioritized for on-site testing capability, so that rapid point of care tests are available for both residents and staff. And this will help identify and reduce the spread of COVID in long-term care communities. And that leads right into the 2nd prong that I mentioned, that's reporting. And our goal is that all cases of COVID-19 at nursing homes and assisted living communities are reported immediately and accurately. And that 3rd prong, hopefully you don't hear my cat meowing, but for our 3rd prong, as hotspots occur, it's really imperative that they be dealt with urgently and effectively. So remember, I used the words surge activation. So what that means is that any reported cases should trigger careful, ongoing monitoring, and if it meets certain conditions, if that hotspot meets a certain condition, what we call strike teams will be employed to the facility to provide needed support until the outbreak is appropriately contained and eliminated. And finally, for providing support, all nursing homes and assisted living communities must have full access to all needed personal protective equipment, testing equipment, training, and external support to keep them COVID-19 free. So these recommendations are informed by CDC guidelines, as is everything that the association does to protect the most vulnerable clients. And we continue to urge action among states and federal authorities to protect these same people. So we'll continue to advocate for change, and we look forward to you joining us. I'm going to hand it over now to Colin Ford, who is the Michigan chapter's Public Policy Director, and he's going to talk to you now about supporting the dementia community.
Thank you, Claudia. Advocacy is a core part of the association's mission, and we encourage all of our program volunteers to learn more about our advocacy efforts. Although the pandemic has changed how we are interacting with our elected officials, what hasn't changed is the urgency of our agenda and the need to get involved. So right now, our priorities in Congress are, and we'll go from left to right on your screen there, the Promoting Alzheimer's Awareness to Prevent Elder Abuse Act. Sadly, 1 in 10 seniors experience some form of elder abuse. For persons with Alzheimer's and related dementias, the prevalence is significantly higher. So Congress has introduced some legislation that directs the Department of Justice to address the underlying factors that contribute to elder abuse, as well as the best practices that can help to alleviate the potential for financial exploitation, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. The Promoting Alzheimer's Awareness portion of that legislation refers specifically to directing the department to focus on and include Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia into their efforts regarding elder abuse. The Improving Hope for Alzheimer's Act has also been introduced, and this requires that Medicare create a benefit for comprehensive care planning services following a dementia diagnosis for the patient, and then also providing those services for caregiver services as well. The last component is the expanded access to credit for nonprofits. As part of the anticipated 4th stage of the federal COVID-related relief package, the Alzheimer's Association is advocating for the establishment of a fund to support nonprofit employers for between 500 and 10,000 employees, including loan forgiveness, to enable the Alzheimer's Association and other large charities to continue to provide services and programs that our communities depend on. So the last part is on the bottom of the page there. And if you haven't already, please consider visiting Alzheimer's or alzimpact.org/volunteer or text ALZVOL to 52886 and become an advocate and get involved. Since more voices are always better when it comes to advocacy, we'd love for you to share this information with any support groups or education programs that you're part of. We always do better with more people involved. So with that, that'll get through this slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Jean, and she'll take the next slide.
Hi, everybody. It's Jean Barnes, and I'm the Program Services Director. Thanks so much for being here. And probably my favorite part of my job is working with volunteers. And I just want to thank everybody for all that you do and all the time that you give. So my slide is about responding to all communities. And I just wanted to take a minute to remind everyone, the association, we have a commitment to serve all communities as we continue to monitor the effect of COVID-19 on minority communities. We recognize that health inequities among African American, Latinx, Hispanic, and Native American communities have been openly exposed as a result of the pandemic. We've created an educational brief for our team to learn more about the disproportionate impact of these health disparities, and we'll share this with you after today's call. We also have a number of upcoming webinars focused on health equity issues that we will share as they become available, and we encourage you to attend. Inclusion, it's a core value of the Alzheimer's Association, and as we've been reminded recently, systemic racial and social injustices permeates all aspects of society, and they're intertwined with the causes of health disparities for many of our minority communities. The Alzheimer's Association believes we must create a society in which people feel safe, cared for, and valued. And that is Zeke, my dog, which I knew this was going to happen. The benefits of working at home. So we will continue our work to include all communities and advance health equity. Please stay tuned for more information as we continue to respond to COVID-19 and our service to all communities. So I wanted to pass it along to Melanie Baird, who is our VP of programs for our chapter, but she's having internet issues. It's unstable. So I'm going to go ahead and do the slide for her. I know she's really bummed about it. But the next slide is all about what is next for our virtual programs. So what I'm going to do is just talk about the delivery of our programs for the foreseeable future. Obviously, the priority of the association is the safety and well-being of our staff, volunteers, and constituents. Of particular concern is the vulnerable group of constituents we serve. As we know, COVID-19 has disproportionately affected older adults and underserved and underrepresented communities. While we know that the number of cases varies from county to county, we also know that COVID has reached every single county in Michigan at this point. Because of this, the association nationwide continues to follow the CDC, or Centers for Disease Control, state health department guidance, and to take all reasonable precautions to keep everybody safe. As a result, our staff will continue to work remotely, and all programs will continue to be delivered using a virtual and telephonic platform. We know that not being able to meet in person may be challenging, but in-person events and programs, they really pose a health and safety liability risk at this time. We really appreciate your patience and understanding as we carefully examine options to safely deliver our programs. Please don't hesitate to reach out to your staff partner or Melanie if you have any questions or concerns. We're always happy to hear any thoughts you have during the meeting today as well. We're deeply grateful for your support in continuing our mission during these uncertain times, and we'll keep you posted on any and all changes to these guidelines. Next up, I'd like to introduce our Regional Health Systems Director, Amy Boehm. She's going to share an opportunity to join us at the AAIC, which is the Alzheimer's Association International Conference. Thanks so much.
Hello, I'm really excited to talk to you about our upcoming event, the AAIC, Alzheimer's Association International Conference. I know that for a lot of you out there, research really is at the heart of why you do what you do in supporting this organization. So to talk a little bit about AAIC really brings me a lot of joy. This year, the AAIC, we were supposed to be gathering in the Netherlands, but with all major conferences, we decided that to help control the spread of COVID-19, we have transitioned this event to a virtual event at no cost for everyone, which is really exciting because that means that we all get a front row seat to listen to amazing thought leaders and experts from around the globe. To share a little bit more about AAIC, this is the largest and most influential international meeting dedicated to advancing dementia science. Each year, AAIC convenes the world's leading basic science and clinical researchers. We have next generation investigators, we have clinicians and care research community that come together to share research discoveries that lead to methods of prevention and treatment and improvements in the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. We all know that this is really important if we're going to change the trajectory of this disease. So if you're interested in science and research, you can visit the website, which is listed right there on the slide, and register for the event. The on-demand education spans for almost an entire week, and you can choose topics that most interest you. Topics from basic science to biomarkers. We have sessions on clinical manifestations and drug development, as well as public health, psychosocial factors, and dementia care practices. So we really hope that you decide to join us this year as we are inviting all of you to participate in this year's AAIC conference. Right now, I would like to turn it over to Kristen Rossi, who is our VP of Development here in Michigan. Kristen?
All right, thanks, Amy. So you may be wondering what this means for our other big association events this fall. So I'm here to tell you that the Walk to End Alzheimer's is still happening. So while the world might feel like it's been a little bit on hold, the threat of Alzheimer's disease hasn't been. And that's why this year's walk is happening everywhere. Walk can happen on any street led by anyone, because the Walk to End Alzheimer's isn't just an event, it's a movement, and we invite you to join us. While we won't be gathering in person, your local walk date will still be your local walk date. We'll have an online local kickoff ceremony and promise garden, and then teams will walk safely with their families in their own neighborhoods as they're comfortable. Participants will also help us get the message out through community symbols like t-shirts, yard signs, and promise garden flowers in neighborhoods across the country. We will kick off our Walk to End Alzheimer's with a pep rally about a month before walk date, so stay tuned for more details on that. In the meantime, we encourage all of our support group attendees, education attendees, people in the general public to get involved with the Walk 2020. Normally, we'd have walk brochures at your meetings and events in the summer and fall, but we have to be a little bit more strategic this year since we're not able to be in person. So be sure to check out our new walk resources at alz.org/walk and share them with everyone you know. If you're into social media, there's lots of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter templates to use to promote the world's biggest event to raise funds and awareness for Alzheimer's. You are our biggest ambassadors, and you can really help us get the community involved. So I can tell you that I've started my team, and I have an even broader representation from around the state because we're not just in one location, we're everywhere. So please join me in signing up your team today. And I'll be on at the end of the call if you have any questions or you want to get some more details. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sarah.
All right, thank you so much. Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some new opportunities coming soon for work from home options. So as we all know, our model of service delivery has changed due to COVID. And many of our families like the ability to receive education and support at home. So even as we move forward, we anticipate a continued virtual presence within our programs, even after we all return to our communities. To support this, we've introduced and are introducing some additional work from home volunteer roles. So our virtual community educators will exclusively offer programs virtually through Zoom or other platforms. What we're looking for is volunteers with extensive experience in Zoom and skills and comfort level in this area so that they can handle that community education program with confidence. Our virtual community representatives, like the educator role, will focus on virtual connections to spread awareness of the association's programs and connect people to help. These volunteers will deliver abbreviated introductory type talks to civic groups, congregations, clubs, sororities, and things like that during virtual meetings to get them excited about our in-depth services such as education and support groups. Now this one's really awesome. I'm really excited about this one. Our program team support volunteer. This is something that we're going to be recruiting for in the very near future for our tech support volunteers who can assist the chapters with virtual delivery. This volunteer will help our educators, support group leaders, and reps run the technology to support their programs. These volunteers have to be super experienced with Zoom or other platforms, so that way they can run the slides, monitor the chat, mute people, let them into the rooms, and moderate the call so presenters can focus on the content. And last but not least, our support group mentor is a new volunteer role for experienced volunteers who want to support other group facilitators to grow and improve their groups. These volunteers can serve as bench strength to fill in for short-term absences in virtual groups. But most importantly, this role gets our volunteer support group leaders together to talk about what you need, support you through difficult group conversations, and even make sure you're getting needed resources. So think of it like an account manager. This mentor may have several support groups at one time, so we can, again, make sure that our programs are as strong as they can be. So keep an eye out. These will be out to the public here probably within the next couple weeks, and hopefully we can get some more people in these awesome positions and keep them moving as we move forward. All right. And last but not least, I did want to talk to all of you a little bit about our program volunteer community, or PVC for short. This is a community that volunteers should have joined and can visit to meet with other volunteers. You can have conversations, you can pose questions to other support group volunteers or other community educators in specific forums, so that other people, not only from Michigan, but from around the country, might be able to answer those questions for you. We will be also posting more education in this site as well, so that you can find more information to perform your role within the chapter. And stay tuned for more specific training on the program volunteer community, but it's evolving every day. And I have been trying to post information in there, but I do highly recommend that you go into your volunteer community. If you have not already, I do recommend that you get together with your staff partner. They can help you log in, or I can always help you log in. But when we go to our communities, as I said, we have an opportunity to start a discussion. We'd love to know your why. We'd love to know what motivates and excites you to continue volunteering. We would love for you to share that with all of us, so that we can all fill our buckets with the excitement that our Alzheimer's volunteers feel. And just as a side note, as we're looking at our program volunteer community, I just wanted to touch on a few things that have come out probably in the past 4 months since I've been with the organization. You may have received a few different emails from Stephanie Rolfs-Young at home office regarding our conflict of interest and confidentiality forms. And you've probably heard it from your program coordinators, and it probably sounds like a lot of nagging. But if you have not yet completed your conflict of interest and confidentiality form, please look for that email. We can send it out again as well, so that everybody has the opportunity to fill out that virtual form. And also, if by chance you have not done your background check, please do so that we can get you out there virtually right now to start assisting with support groups and education programs and things like that. And we want to make sure that everybody is good to go. So if you do have and or need assistance with that, please feel free to reach out to your program coordinator or myself, and we can go ahead and help you with that. But again, check out the program volunteer community at volunteer.alz.org and take a look around. All right, well, that is the end of our slides for now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Phelan for our question and answer session. And Michelle is going to answer any of your questions. So please put any of your questions in the chat. And if you want to speak your question, simply go over to the participants drop down. And at the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little button that says raise hand. And it'll raise a blue hand next to your name. And that way Michelle and or I can unmute you and you can ask your question in person. So Michelle, I am going to pass it over to you.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any questions yet. Did put a few links in the chat box of just what some of our staff members have talked about. But I'll go ahead and wait and open it up for anybody. And this is the time to ask, because we have people from all different departments of our staff. So you're going to get the best answers you possibly can right now.
Does anybody have questions about the new positions, about advocacy, about WALK, how we're doing things, about AAIC, anything that Jean spoke about disparities? Now's the time to ask. We've got all the experts on. So we'll stay on here for a little bit. Oh, and Jennifer has her hand raised, but just before we get to Jennifer, just want to let you know, we will stay on here for a little bit to answer questions. If you do have to go, go ahead. But if they don't, you can also email your questions to any of us and we can answer that as well. But Jennifer looks like she has her hand raised. So Melanie, if you can, or Melanie, sorry.
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
All right, yes, you're unmuted. I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, I thought actually, since we have some of our, high-level volunteers on the phone, I'd like to hear how they think things are going virtually, what they've liked, what have been the challenges, and just really their feedback. I'd really appreciate that if somebody's willing to share. I think we're seeing one of the challenges with our technology. If we were all sitting in a room, probably more of you would be talking. Is anybody willing to share just kind of what their experiences have been through this time?
And we encourage feedback too, because that will just make it more smooth on our ends. If we hear back from you, it's something that that hasn't gone so well, we want to hear. Or if you don't feel comfortable now, you can reach out.
We want to hear everything. We don't want to just hear good stuff. So Sharon's in here in the chat saying she's positive feedback from support groups virtually. Is anyone running a support group that hasn't wanted to meet virtually?
Doesn't look like it.
Is,
okay,
all right, I have one more question, see if anyone wants to answer this. Is there anybody who prefers doing it this way, COVID or not COVID, but is actually enjoying? Oh, and Cindy's got her hand up, so I will stop talking so Cindy can talk.
Okay, I'll go ahead and unmute you, Cindy. Go ahead whenever you're ready, Cindy. Oops.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Cindy Beller, and I facilitate an early stage caregiver group, and I co-facilitate an early or a younger onset support group for caregivers. And I've been meeting virtually since the beginning of April with the early stage group. Usually we meet twice a month. And initially I combined the two groups to meet at the same time. Recently, maybe a month ago, the early stage group, or the younger onset group thought they would like to have their own group. So we split off and we meet with the early stage group once a week at their request. And that's going very well. I have anywhere from, minimum 6 participants to 13 sometimes. And I think one of the challenges I face is just the communication, getting enough people to, just the technical part of it. I call on people and then I ask people for their input on questions, but it is kind of difficult. So it's a learning curve, I think. But that is going very well. The younger onset group, I've been having some much less participation. So just last week, I emailed all the people in the support group and asked them if a time change would help. And the response that I'm getting back is that probably it would, because a lot of the younger onset caregivers are now back to work in one manner or another. And we usually meet at night. So I think going forward, I'm going to have an evening meeting for them and see if that increases the participation. But all in all, I like it a lot, not as well as in person, but I think it's very valuable. The people in the early stage group, somebody every meeting says that it's really the highlight of their week. Honestly, they love getting together, and they really value the group that we're in. They're very cohesive, very close. So it's a good experience for everybody.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Cindy, and for continuing with everything, even though it's been 4 months already. I do want to just share that Deb also put that so many of our families appreciate the connection and feel they are not alone. But many are anxious to meet again in person as they feel more connected and can get out of the house and meet with others. And we certainly do understand that. Again, it's just for safety reasons. We're trying to keep people at home, and this is what we can do for now to make sure people are feeling connected. So thank you for everyone who's continuing with that. And Melanie, I see you raised your hand, so
thank you.
you can go ahead.
Thanks. I think my connection's a little bit more stable now. You guys aren't all going in and out. So I just wanted to say, just kind of going off of Deb's comment and also Cindy's, obviously we're keeping people connected through these virtual and telephonic platforms, but that's really because of all of you. That's the biggest reason, because you have all decided to continue, serving our constituents in these uncertain times. And these are definitely challenging times on many levels for various reasons. And, we just want to say, one, that we appreciate you so much, and two, that we are here to support you in any way that you need. So any thoughts, any concerns, any questions that you have, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or your staff partner or Sarah Lewan, so that we can, make sure that anything that you have gets resolved, that stressors ease a little bit, and that we can continue to connect people to the supports that they need. Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question they'd like to ask? Okay, I don't see any other questions or comments. I just want to reiterate what everybody else has said. Thank you so much for all you have continued to do during this time. We can't do it without you. And if I'm sure people have already told you, but if they haven't, your work matters. So thank you. And Sarah, back to you.
All right, I had to find my unmute button. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I am glad we had a fairly good turnout for, the middle of the summer. And I do want to let everybody know we will be sending this out for the rest of the volunteers who were not able to join. So if you have friends that weren't able to watch this, let them know that it will be coming out via email. And again, if you do have questions, you can feel free to email your staff partner, myself, Melanie, and we would be more than happy to answer your question. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for joining us today. And I am going to give you 15 minutes of your life back. So I hope you have a great day, a great rest of your summer. And we want to thank you so much for being here.